So last season, I played around with a couple of different trellis structures for cucumbers, and there was one in particular that I absolutely loved and had the plants completely thriving. So much so that as we enter the 2022 season, I'm still trying to race the clock to eat all the pickles that I have canned and stored from last season. So today, I'm going to walk you through step by step how to build my favorite A-frame trellis for cucumbers. And so as we dive in, if you do have any questions at any point, just leave those down in the comments section. I start every one of my days by answering every single question that we get on YouTube, so you're gonna get a response from me super quickly. Now, when it comes to cucumbers, the question is, of course, why do we want to be trellising them? And there's really two primary reasons for this. The first one is simply to maximize our garden space, as is the case with any trellis structures that we're creating. So cucumbers, they are vines and going to crawl really, really far, just like our squashes. And ultimately, that can mean they're gonna take up a lot of garden space where we could end up actually having other plants living. But by trellising them, we're absolutely maximizing every square foot because we have them growing up vertically into new space. So when you take a look at my front bed last year where I grew my cucumbers, I had 6 cucumbers on this A-frame trellis. On top of that, I had another 8 squash in just that one bed, and there is still space to plant more. So trellising these cucumbers allows us to really maximize our garden space. And the second reason why I love this structure is because cucumbers, they end up having suckers that grow between the main stem and the leaves. And this sucker that grows off it is similar to a tomato sucker, where if we leave it, it's ultimately going to end up producing flowers and more fruit. And the beauty of this A-frame trellis structure is, rather than it being a teepee where it's really condensed and in a small space, this provides it essentially like a wall for it to be growing along so that those suckers can run any which direction and ultimately put out way more fruit. And so last season, I probably, out of just the 6 plants, got somewhere between 125 to 150 cucumbers using this type of a trellis structure. So with that said, let's make our way over to the garage to start putting it together. So to begin building this structure, you're going to want to pick up 2 8-foot 2x2s. And once you have them back at home, you're going to measure each of them out 48 inches or 4 feet to cut them in half. These are going to become the ends of our A-frame. All right, so now I've got 4 4-foot pieces of wood for the ends of the A-frame. Well, close-ish to 4 feet. That's what we go for around here on woodworking projects with Jordan. Close-ish, functional, not finesse. And so the next thing that we want to do is the one kind of tricky part of this, and that is cutting it on a diagonal. So what you need to do is grab your first 4-foot piece of wood, and then you're going to go from one end down 9 inches and make a tick mark. And then from that tick mark to the opposite top corner, you're going to draw a diagonal end. Once you've drawn that, all that you need to do is cut along that line. And then you repeat that process on the remaining 3 pieces of wood. And this is what's going to allow us to have that nice sharp angle on the A-frame so that it takes up a really small footprint in our garden. Alrighty, so as we can see, starting to look like an A-frame. But before starting to connect it, the last thing that you want to do is also cut on the bottom of it a little bit of a diagonal. Now this can be at 3 inches, 5 inches, 7 inches. I'm personally going to go at 5 inches, and this is going to make it a lot easier to push these into the ground when we put it in the garden. Alrighty, bottoms are cut, so now we can begin to connect the A-frame ends. And so to do this, I'm just lining up the 9-inch cut marks that I made, pressing them together, and then I'm going to put 2 screws into each side. So I'm going to pre-drill a hole, then pop my first screw in, pop my screw in, and then I'm going to repeat that process on the second one. All right, so now we've got the 2 ends of our A-frame trellis, and we need to begin connecting them. So the first thing that we want to do on that front is put a tick mark every 16 inches on each of the beams. So starting from the top, just go down 16 inches, make a tick mark, and then continue from there, the next 16 inches, next tick mark, until all 4 of them have their tick marks on them. It's at these intervals that we're going to put cross braces to connect the ends and begin to secure the structure. Alrighty, we got the tick marks on, so now we can connect those cross braces to begin to secure the full structure. So let's take it out onto the driveway here to begin doing that. Hello, sunshine. And now in terms of width, I'm going with 4 feet. And so all that I did was took some old fence pieces of wood and cut those down to 4-foot strips. And then all that I'm doing from there is pre-drilling 2 holes and then connecting the cross brace to the A-frame end. And then I continue to the second cross brace, and then all the way to the third cross brace at the very top. And once I've got those done, I just flip it over and repeat the process on the other side. Pre-drill my holes, screw in the cross brace, and continue up towards the top. Alrighty, moment of truth. Let's see how we did. Hey, that's looking pretty good. Alrighty, and so there's only one more very special little modification that I like to make to it. But first, let's get it into the backyard where the cucumbers are going to grow. Whew, that sun feels good. So just before we get to that one final tip that I love to do with this trellis here, for those of you that I have not met before, I'm Jordan from Mind and Soil, where we're looking to introduce 1 million individuals to gardening's mental health benefits. So if you're looking for more peacefulness, more joy, more restoration in your life, then I really encourage you to subscribe to our channel here, because we put out new videos just like this one every single week to be taking as much of the guesswork out of gardening as possible so that you can be more quickly tapping into its mental health benefits. So that one final piece, and if you've watched our squash trellis video, which I'm going to link up above here, you know that I love to utilize yarn. So what I'm going to do here is grab a ball of yarn and begin to weave that from one side of the A-frame over to the other. And I'm going to go up about every 3 to 4 inches and just continue to weave back and forth until I've made it to the top of the A-frame. And then I'm going to do that on the other side as well. And the reason why I love this so much is because for cucumbers, the way that they grow and climb is using their tendrils. And these tendrils are looking for little kind of small structures to wrap around on and put out more new vertical growth. Alrighty, and we are all set, ready for the season and ready to grow. And now one last piece is that if you did want a slightly larger structure, you absolutely could do this. And a matter of fact, a couple of days ago when I first started filming this video, I went with 6-foot pieces of wood. And I filmed the whole thing, built the whole thing, but then when I put it into the garden, it just felt a little bit too big. So I ended up refilming everything today with the 4-foot pieces of wood, and I think it fits in there really, really well. So feel free to adjust up and down for what works for your space. But all that being said, folks, with this sun coming down, the cucumbers are just about all set, ready to go into the garden. And before you know it, you are going to have tons and tons of cucumbers in your backyard coming off of your plants, especially while utilizing this trellis structure. So it's all for right now. If you do have any questions, leave those down in the comments. Otherwise, I can't wait to catch you on the next video. Go get those hands dirty, and I'll see you soon.